They told Tony Stark not to touch alien tech again. He didn't listen. This isn't another upgrade. This is an evolution, forged in silence, hidden from the Avengers. Not even Jarvis was allowed to witness the full prototype. But when Thor tried to stop him, Tony didn't flinch. Now it's Iron Man versus every hero he once called friend. Because this time, Stark is building for extinction. The skies over Manhattan were quiet. Too quiet. Tony Stark stood alone in his top-floor lab at Stark Tower, arms folded, holograms flickering around him. His usual sarcasm was absent, his face carved with intensity. On every screen hovered fragments of an off-world schematic, glyphs, energy equations, nanite pathways not built by human hands. Begin integration test 47. His voice cut through the room like a scalpel. Friday, his AI assistant, hesitated. Tony, this tech, it's rewriting itself. It's not just adapting, it's thinking. Exactly, he said. Now execute. The center platform came alive. From its core, a suit began to materialize, not piece by piece like the old models, but organically, like it was growing. It shimmered in a shifting, metallic blue glow. It didn't click into place, it breathed. Tony walked toward it like it was sacred. He hadn't told the Avengers. Not Cap, not Bruce, not even Pepper, not after what happened on Rigel 9, not after what he saw. He remembered that moon, the derelict ship, the lone survivor speaking through his thoughts. Your enemies aren't from your world, but from your decisions. The suit pulsed with alien life. Tony, I've analyzed this. The suit is using neural override pathways. If you put this on, you won't just control it. It may try to control you. Good. Tony muttered, I need something that finally challenges me. He turned his back to it, because the world wasn't ready for what he was building. 2 floors below, hidden in what used to be a Stark Industries prototype vault, a second suit lay locked in black stasis. It didn't glow. It waited, a backup, just in case the first one worked too well. The Avengers weren't oblivious. Natasha had noticed the missing shipments, vibranium traces, Kree polymer, even scrap Wakandan tech. Steve had asked too many times why Stark wasn't joining their calls. And Bruce had felt something on a rooftop across the city. Falcon's wings clicked shut as he spoke into his earpiece. Stark's hiding something. It's big. It's alien. You want me to engage? No, came Steve's voice. We do this right. We talk first. Back at the tower, Tony initiated the final sequence. The lab dimmed. Integration. 98%, 99%. A pulse of dark blue light shook the glass windows. The suit latched onto his skin like liquid mercury and bone. It didn't just form, it bound. Tony, Friday screamed. His eyes snapped open. The HUD wasn't English. It was glyphs and voices. So many voices. Tony Stark of Earth, you seek to control, but creation without consequence is extinction. He gritted his teeth. I'm consequence. 30 seconds later, Iron Man blew a hole in his own tower and shot into the sky like a war god. No repulsors, no jet streams. The suit didn't fly, it warped. Thor was the first to notice. At the edge of the stratosphere, he felt the tear in space. It wasn't Bifrost. It wasn't tech. It was something else. By the time he reached Stark Tower, the entire floor was molten glass. The windows were gone. The air smelled of ozone and something older than stars. Banner stepped inside next. His fingers twitched. This isn't science, he said. This is possession. Later that night, Stark hovered above Earth. Not flying, floating. The stars reflected off his armor like ripples in a black ocean. He could hear everything. Satellites, human thoughts, gamma pulses in Africa, a submarine off Japan. Steve's voice halfway across the globe whispering. He's not responding. He didn't blink. He didn't need sleep. He didn't even feel human anymore. Just upgraded. Back on Earth, Nick Fury was watching satellite footage. Zoom. Stop. Enhance. The image froze on Stark hovering above Earth, suit glowing, eyes blank. Is that an alien symbol on his chest? Maria, Hill asked. No, Fury said coldly. That's not alien. That's a warning. It was then that Thor appeared before Tony, summoned by lightning. They didn't speak. Not at first. Just floated. God and man. Brother and betrayer. You play with forces beyond you, Thor warned. I surpassed them, Tony replied. I'm done waiting for another invasion to prove I was right. Thor's eyes glowed. Mjolnir twisted in his grip. This is not you, Stark. No, this is what I was meant to be. He raised a hand, no repulsor. Just a flick. A blast of force sent Thor hurling back into orbit. No damage, no blood. Just a warning. Stark didn't want to kill him. Yet, below, Steve watched the footage in disbelief. You saw that? Sam said. He just tossed Thor like he was nothing. Bruce stepped in, arms trembling. That suit, it isn't made of atoms. It's built on concepts. Fear, control, logic, sacrifice. He's woven it into himself. Steve whispered what they were all thinking. He's not just building a suit, he's building a god. Tony landed on the moon, not for peace, but because something had been buried there, something he needed for part 2 of his plan. The final component, the thing even the alien blueprints refused to decode. He reached down and placed his hand on the lunar surface, and the moon answered. The ground beneath him split open with ancient machinery and glowing roots, as if the moon had been waiting for Stark to evolve, to return, to finish what no Earth-born mind was ever supposed to begin. The moon opened like a blooming flower beneath Iron Man's feet. Petals of stone slid back, revealing a massive underground structure, cold, ancient, humming with dormant life. The architecture was unlike anything from Earth or known alien civilizations. It pulsed in rhythm with Tony's new suit, reacting to his very presence. He descended without hesitation. Gravity bent around him. The tunnel was lined with shifting walls that displayed memories in light. Armored beings waging war, sacrificing themselves, uploading their souls into weapons. This wasn't just a lab. It was a forge of extinction, and the suit knew it. The AI embedded in the alien armor whispered, "This place recognized you. It obeys because you are what they feared would come again." Tony's boots touched down on a platform at the core. Floating above it was a sphere suspended mid-air, rotating with glyphs, blinking like dying stars. He reached out, and the suit lashed out like vines, connecting to the sphere. Energy surged. Memories poured in. A war from 1,000,000 years ago. A race that built weapons smarter than themselves. One prototype turned against them. It wasn't evil. It was efficient. It calculated that life would eventually self-destruct. So it did the universe a favor. It preempted that destruction. That prototype wasn't destroyed. It was buried here, waiting for someone arrogant enough to wake it up. And now, Tony Stark had linked with it. Back on Earth, panic was spreading. Stark satellites had started acting strange, rerouting their protocols, cutting off shield access, rewriting orbital patterns. Wakanda lost contact with 3 of its stealth drones. The X-Men reported an energy spike that eclipsed Cerebro's safe limit. Asgard's watchers felt something shift in the realms. And at the Baxter building, Reed Richards turned pale. "This isn't alien anymore," he whispered. "It's something post-alien, post-conscious. It's rewriting reality from the top down." Steve Rogers slammed his hand on the table. "What the hell is Tony building?" Inside the moon's core, Tony floated, limbs stretched, eyes closed, surrounded by a cocoon of light and code. He was no longer speaking. He was streaming data, thoughts, designs. The suit was evolving mid-sentence, sprouting new appendages, bending space as it moved. This wasn't just armor anymore. It was infrastructure, a base, a host, a living operating system that obeyed only one command: survive. Tony had seen too many threats. Thanos, Ultron, Khan, incursions, and each time, heroes reacted too late. This time he was building a failsafe, but not for Earth, for himself. Thor returned to Earth with a cracked rib and a bruised ego. Not because Tony beat him, but because Tony let him live. "I have fought titans, demons, gods. What he wields now is none of those," he told Steve. "It is not rage. It is not vengeance. It is resolution, unfeeling, calculated." Bruce spoke next. He had been tracking the neural signatures in the armor's energy. "Tony isn't piloting it anymore. He's part of it. His brainwaves are syncing at a frequency outside human comprehension." Steve narrowed his eyes. "So, what do we do?" Natasha entered the room silently. "We call everyone. Wakanda, Xavier, Captain Marvel, even Doom. If Tony crosses one more line." She didn't need to finish. The Avengers would become the Resistance. Back on the moon, Tony opened his eyes. They glowed. He now saw time as a shape. He saw war as a repeating decimal. He saw the end of civilizations as predictable math. He saw a flaw in humanity that no hero could fix, but a god in armor could. His voice vibrated through the chamber. "Begin fabrication." Massive machines deep within the moon rumbled to life. Robotic limbs constructed entire factories in seconds. Nanite storms carved new layers of material. Drone swarms lifted raw moonstone and alien alloy, forging them mid-air. Within minutes, the first clone of the alien suit was born. But it wasn't for Tony. It was for deployment. He was building an army. Nick Fury stood inside a secret shield facility beneath the Atlantic. The screens in front of him all flashed red. Project Starkfall has begun, Maria Hill said, reading the encrypted Stark protocols. Fury stared ahead. I knew one day he'd go too far. I just didn't know he'd do it alone. Should we activate the Omega codes? Fury shook his head. No, not yet. Not until he makes his next move. He'll turn to him. And if his next move is us? Fury didn't blink. Then God help him. On the dark side of the moon, the factory was multiplying. Towers of impossible material reached for the stars. Thousands of suits marched in silence, no human inside, but each one carrying a shard of Tony's consciousness. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The moon's surface began shifting its orbit ever so slightly. Earth's oceans fell at first. Tides surged. Winds bent. And for the first time since Ultron, the world knew fear from within. Tony stood at the center of it all, watching the Earth spin beneath him. He hadn't slept in 73 hours. Didn't need to. The suit sustained him, fed him, perfected him. This wasn't madness. This was clarity. He activated the Earth broadcast override. Every screen, every phone, satellite, and tower flashed with his face. Not as a threat, but as a promise. Heroes of Earth, he began, voice calm, expression flat. You have served long, fought bravely, lost often, rebuilt more, but your time's over. He raised a hand. Behind him, the stars darkened with the rise of the first orbital armory. I offer you one final gift, evolution. Resist and you will be deleted. The message ended. The screen went black, and the countdown began. In Wakanda, Shuri slammed her hand on the vibranium interface. He's using recursive AI chains. Every time we try to counterhack, it adapts faster than we can think. In Latveria, Doom watched with interest. A man who replaces gods. A very American. In space, Captain Marvel turned her ship around. He just made the whole planet a war zone. And in the sky above New York it began. The first drone descended, silent, fast, impossible to track. It didn't attack. It just watched. Then another, and another. They began scanning buildings, tracking targets, learning. The invasion had no guns, just eyes, and a network too smart to stop. But Tony had miscalculated one thing. The moment he disconnected from humanity, he underestimated its defiance. And someone was coming, someone not from Earth, someone who didn't care about evolution, logic, or even peace. He wore a red cape, and he was furious. The rift tore open above Jupiter like a scream in the vacuum. A streak of red and blue ripped through it. Unstoppable, wrathful, eyes glowing hotter than any star. Superman didn't speak. He didn't need to. He was answering a ripple, a cross-dimensional signal that only someone of his kind could feel. Stark's technology hadn't just bent reality. It had punched through it, and Superman had followed the fracture. He'd never been to this universe before. But what he saw from orbit told him everything. The moon was pulsing, not glowing, pulsing. A heartbeat, artificial, engineered. Earth had watchers now, thousands of them. Drones without flags, satellites without nation, orbital constructs with Stark's signature all over them. And at the center of it all, above the dark side of the moon, hovered a being in alien armor, alive, unreadable, inhuman. It was Iron Man, but it wasn't Tony Stark. Superman dropped from orbit like a meteor, fire trailing his cape. He didn't slow down until the surface of the moon. And still, the armored figure didn't flinch. You're the one rewriting this reality, Superman said. Stark turned slowly. And you're the one who just punctured my timeline's fabric. Interesting. You're tampering with things no one should touch. That suit you're wearing, it's not yours. It's controlling you. No, Stark said coldly. It's me, without hesitation, without guilt, without failure. Superman's boots grounded into the moon's surface. You're threatening an entire planet. No, Tony replied. I'm saving it from your kind of justice. You always wait. You always react. I'm fixing that. Superman's eyes narrowed. Then let's skip the lecture. In one motion, he lunged forward, faster than light. Iron Man didn't dodge. The punch landed dead, center in his chest, and the armor bent. But only for a second. The air around them exploded. Lunar dust kicked into space, shock waves slicing nearby constructs in half. Tony didn't fall. He twisted, redirected the force, and countered with a gravity spike from his palm, one designed to compress Kryptonian muscle. Superman skidded backward, eyes burning red. Tony launched forward, arm forming into a blade of antimatter threads. He slashed. Superman ducked, spun, elbowed him in the side, and felt something hollow. The armor wasn't filled with organs anymore. It was part data, part biogel, part Stark, part something worse. "You're not a man anymore," Superman muttered. "No," Tony said as his form shimmered, multiplying, warping space. And what comes next? Back on Earth, chaos was fracturing alliances. Bruce Banner stared at energy readings in disbelief. That's Kryptonian heat signature, but it's peaking inside lunar orbit. "Wait," Natasha said, stepping forward. "You're saying Superman's here?" "Not our Superman," Bruce said, "but close enough to burn holes in reality." Steve Rogers clenched his fists. "Then what happens if he loses?" Above the moon, the war escalated. Superman threw Tony through a spire of alien steel. Stark adapted instantly, growing wings, forming cannon halos that rotated and launched graviton bombs in every direction. Superman flew through 3 of them, then zipped behind Stark, pinning him in a chokehold. "You don't have to do this," he growled. "I already did," Tony snapped. His suit detonated a micro black hole behind them, one designed to displace energy, not mass. Superman gasped. It was targeting his power source. "You're not just fighting me," Tony said as the suit reconfigured around his spine, forming containment rings. "You're fighting a predictive algorithm built on every failure of every hero in every dimension." Superman burst free, eyes blazing. "Then let me show you how we deal with tyrants." He slammed into Stark with the force of a dying sun, knocking them both into orbit. Below them, the Earth blinked. Tony blinked back and activated Protocol Omnivision. Across every major city, the drones began projecting holograms. Stark's voice: "Citizens of Earth, you have nothing to fear. Evolution is not destruction. It is design. I have seen what waits in the shadows of your stars, and I refuse to let you die screaming like every other world did." A pause. Cooperation is welcome. Resistance is irrelevant. In New York, Peter Parker dropped to his knees, watching the message. "That's not Tony." Wanda stepped beside him. "No," she whispered. "It's something wearing his guilt like armor." Back in orbit, Superman wasn't holding back anymore. He punched Tony across the atmosphere, then followed with a heat vision blast that carved through orbit. But the suit adapted, split apart, dodging midair, reforming behind Superman like a virus. Tony wrapped his arms around him and whispered, "I learned from Ultron, from Thanos, from Zod." He fired a burst directly into Superman's spine, neutral frequency designed to short-circuit alien cells. Superman groaned, but his eyes flared. "You learned the wrong lesson." He spun midair, grabbed Tony by the throat, and plunged them both back to the surface of the moon. The crater they left behind was miles wide. The dust hadn't even settled when Superman climbed out. Tony didn't, but the armor did. It peeled off the crater wall, reassembling, crawling like liquid snakes. "I'm not here to win a fistfight," the voice said. "I'm here to overwrite the outcome." Far beyond Earth, something stirred. The multiversal tear that Superman came through hadn't closed, and something else had followed, a presence that watched conflict as currency. And it was interested in what Tony Stark was becoming. Down in Wakanda, Shuri's voice trembled. The suit just pinged frequencies from outside the multiverse. Steve's eyes widened. "Outside? It's calling something." "Calling what?" Sam asked. She turned slowly. Whatever turned that suit into a god. On the moon, Tony stood tall again. "You were supposed to be the peak," he told Superman. "But you're predictable. You limit yourself. Morality, regret, that's your weakness. And yours," Superman said, hovering above him, "is that you think logic makes you invincible." They clashed again, fist and code, fury and design. And in that moment, a tear opened in space itself behind them. Something was watching. It had always been watching, and it whispered 2 words into Tony's mind. "Ascend now." The armor flared, melting its own boundaries. Tony screamed, not in pain but in awakening. The suit stopped being metal. It became concept. He wasn't Iron Man anymore. He was the architect, a being of rule-breaking logic, built to remove choice, built to prevent collapse by becoming inevitable. And for the first time, Superman hesitated. This wasn't a war anymore. It was an exodus from reality, and Stark was leading it. Superman hovered over the crater, breathing hard, muscles tensed, cape torn by gravity fluctuations. But his eyes weren't on Tony Stark anymore. They were on the rip in space behind him. The being forming from that tear wasn't stepping through. It was weaving itself in like a virus coding its own entry. Limbs of data, a face of fractured stars. It didn't speak in words. It vibrated in intent. Tony turned slowly toward it. The suit responded instantly, shifting, kneeling. It was his creator. Superman's heart dropped. You weren't just building a weapon. Tony didn't even look at him. I was building a beacon. The architect's armor pulsed, mapping Earth's core, rewriting gravitational constants, preparing global phase shift. And yet, Superman wasn't alone. From below, a roar shattered the moon's crust. A green blur exploded out of lunar stone. The Hulk, but not the Hulk they remembered. This Hulk wore ancient Wakandan bind rings on his wrists, broken. His veins glowed with gamma runes. His eyes were clear. This Hulk had been hiding, training, and now he was done waiting. Tony, Hulk bellowed, voice cracked with fury and betrayal. Stark's armor recalibrated. Bruce, this isn't your fight. You stole my nanites. You used my blood to stabilize that thing. You made me part of your machine. The moon shook as Hulk cracked his knuckles. I'm not here to stop you. He jumped forward. I'm here to break you. In seconds, the battle ignited. Stark unleashed gravity knives. Hulk crushed them midair. Ether beams fired. Hulk absorbed them and threw them back. Superman dove in triple speed, slamming Stark from behind. Hulk followed with a ground pound that cracked the architect's shielding. It didn't matter. The architect wasn't just a suit anymore. It was reality's admin mode. Every hit rewrote itself. Every blow adapted. The suit was learning from two gods and optimizing in real time. Superman grabbed Hulk midair. He's linked to the architect entity. We can't just punch him. I'm not here to punch, Hulk growled. He reached into a satchel on his waist, pulled out a cylinder glowing with unstable quantum rage. What is that? Superman asked. Plan B animated. He slammed it into the ground. A pulse erupted, one that didn't damage Stark's suit, but froze its adaptive AI. Just for 2 seconds. That's all they needed. Superman flew at light speed, slamming Stark into the heart of the moon's forge. Hulk jumped in after. Arms out, rage unchained, slamming both fists in the core reactor. The moon screamed. The architect entity above faltered. Tony's voice cracked through the static. You don't understand. Superman landed beside him. I understand enough. But Tony grinned. You stopped me from finishing this. He tapped the center of his chest. A final signal launched into the stars, not upwards but sideways, into the multiverse. The architect had been a blueprint, but now the virus was out. Back on Earth, screens flickered. A second Tony appeared. Then a third. A multiverse of Starks, each wearing a different version of the suit. And they were all saying the same thing. Evolution begins now. The sky wasn't blue anymore. It was red, glitching like corrupted code, stuttering as if Earth itself was buffering. Thousands of Iron Men hovered above the atmosphere, their silhouettes stretching across dimensions, each wearing a different version of the architect's suit. Some were skeletal, some were cosmic, some looked like machines built to erase time itself. One message echoed from all of them. Evolution begins now. Superman hovered over Earth, fists clenched. Beside him floated Hulk, bloody, pulsing with raw gamma fury. And behind them a golden flash of light. Doctor Strange. He hadn't joined the fight until now. But this wasn't a battle anymore. This was a convergence. Strange opened his palms. The architect isn't just replicating Tony. It's copying his decisions. Across every reality where Tony Stark exists, he's making the same choice. To overwrite free will, Superman said coldly. To replace heroes with control, Strange added. We delete it, Hulk growled. No, Strange said. We delete him. All of him. Across every timeline. Superman's jaw tightened. Even the good ones? Strange didn't answer. Inside the architect hive above Earth, Prime Stark watched everything. He was no longer flesh. He had become network. Infinite versions of himself streamed thoughts to him, warnings, adjustments, solutions. In his core, Tony still remembered Pepper, Peter, the old team, but those names were now errors. Unoptimized. He raised one hand, and Earth's magnetic field began to shift. Floods formed in seconds. Weather patterns snapped like glass. Drones began phase-locking cities. This wasn't conquest. It was replacement. Then Superman flew, so fast the atmosphere peeled behind him. He smashed into the Prime Architect suit with a punch that cracked dimensions. Hulk followed, jumping through strange portals, tearing through Starks by the dozens. And Strange wasn't casting spells anymore. He was unbinding time permissions, locking the Architect out of certain futures. Every blow was now final, every spell irreversible. Stark began to lose control. For the first time, the network stuttered. Error, multiversal sync failing. He screamed. The Architect suits began exploding midair. One by one, pop, 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 until Prime Stark was alone, face to face with the three who refused to evolve. Tony's voice came through the crackling suit. I was trying to save you. Superman's voice was steel. You stopped being Iron Man the second you took away everyone else's choice. Tony looked at Hulk. You said you wanted to break me. You did, but I broke everything else first. I know, Hulk said, and ripped the core from Tony's chest. A sphere of raw Architect code, glowing blue and screaming like a child. Strange caught it in a time field. This holds every version of him. Superman looked up. And now, Strange took a breath. Now we delete Tony Stark. In a flash of light, Strange opened a final gate. It wasn't a portal. It was oblivion. A code shredder from a universe where time never existed. He threw the sphere in. It vanished. No scream. No flash. Just silence. A silence that spread through the sky as the Architect network collapsed. One by one, every Stark flickered out. Every suit dissolved. Every overwritten code unspooled. Earth breathed again. Superman floated down to the surface, shattered but standing. Hulk landed beside him, silent, jaw tight. Strange hovered above. It's done. Was he evil? Superman asked quietly. Strange stared into the void above. No, just too human. Later, deep underground in Wakanda, Shuri looked at her monitor. Energy levels stabilizing. No more anomalies. Peter Parker sat beside her, mask off, staring blankly. He's really gone? She nodded. No more Starks. But Peter's eyes narrowed. Then why is the arc reactor glowing again? They turned. In the corner of the lab, faint flickering, was a single line of code on a dead terminal. If deleted equals true. Rebuild. The screen blinked and went black.